Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is CHAGGIGA Daf Chav Gimel, and we are holding on Chav Beis Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. We're in the midst of the sugya of Chomer B'Kodesh, which is pretty much a list of chumros that were applied specifically to kachim related materials, karbonos related materials, and basically the point is, the higher you go, the more kaddish you are. It's pretty much a balancing system. Depending on how kaddish you are, that's how much you have to guard yourself against tumah. Look, keep in mind, truma and kachim may not become tummy. One has to look after them. There's a pasuk, mishmeres trumoisai. You're not allowed to have these things become tummy, so you have to really be careful. And the more kaddish it is, the more stringencies the chachamim imposed on us to ensure that indeed it remains tahor and unaffected by tumah. So amongst those ma'alos, amongst those stringencies, we have the following. 3 lines from the bottom. Hanoises ha-medrus, noises ha-truma, avlois ha-kodesh. While one is carrying a medras, which is a term used for something which the zav or the zava or the nida sat on or walked on, which is really an av ha-tumah. So while you're holding it in one hand, you may not carry in your other hand something which is a carbon, which is kodesh. It may touch, it may get affected by the tumah. So this is a concern, a chumrah applicable to kodesh, but not to truma. You may carry truma in the other hand. Says the Gemara, kodesh my time eloi. What's wrong with carrying kodesh at the same time as the medras? Now, of course, we're speaking that the kodesh is protected. It's inside a barrel or something that's keeping it hidden from the medras. You're not actually going to be matame the kodesh at this point. So typically, while one is actually holding a medras, he himself has the ability to transfer tumah to something else that he's holding. But in this case, it's protected from his tumah because it's sitting inside a clay barrel, a klicheres, which is not going to be mekabel tumah from the outside, or another such example. So at this point, the kodesh is really tahor. So what's wrong with carrying it at the same time as the medras? My time aloi. Answers the Gemara Mishum Masa Shahaya. There was a story as follows. The Amr of Yehuda Shmuel, Masa be'echad shaya mavir chavis shal yayin kodesh mimakim l'makim. There was an incident involving a fellow who was transporting a barrel filled with wine, which was intended for a korban, for nesachim. So he was carrying it mimakim l'makim. And he was wearing a sandal. V'nifsaka ritzor shesandalei. This sandal happened to be tummy. It was used by a zav, and the strap, the ritzor of this sandal, broke off. Benatla, so he picked it up. He picked it up. V'nichal gabi chavas. He picked it off the floor and put it onto this barrel with wine of kachim. And he was walking with the barrel covered with this ritzur. And what happened? If enough avir hachavas, and the ritzur, this strap which was now tummy, fell into the barrel of the nitmes, and everything inside became tummy. Ba'isa shah amru, at that point Chazal were geyser hanoisei as a medras, noisei as a truma, avaleis hakodesh. While you are carrying something tummy, you may carry truma at the same time, but not kachim. We're concerned about this story repeating itself, and they were masakin this gezerah. If that's the case, if you're concerned that the medras will affect the kodesh that you're holding, then the same thing should apply to truma. Why are you limiting your gzera to kachim and not to truma? Hamani Rabbi Chananya ben Akavihi, our Mishnah, which limits this concern to kodesh dafka, is in line with Rabbi Chananya ben Akaviya the Amar, who says like this: when something occurs which generates, which is a catalyst for a gzera de rabbanon, it only applies to that very specific circumstance. We're afraid of that same story repeating itself, but we don't broaden the gzera to other situations. And since, in this case, it was kachim that were being carried, and they were affected by the ritzur of the sandal, We stick to kachim, we don't spread it to truma. Rabbi Chanani ben Akavi, the Amar loy asru el biyarden, ubesfina, ukemasa shahaya. As we're going to see soon in the Brisa, there was a gzera de Rabbanan when it comes to meichatas, which is a reference to the para aduma water, which has to be kept really, really looked after, really kaddish, really tar. There was an incident involving somebody transporting it and got tamei, so they said, look, you have to be careful. And they established safeguards to ensure its tahara. But, says Rabbi Chananya, the Isser only applied in the Jordan River while using a ship exactly as the story occurred. Mahi, what story are we referring to? This Anya. A person should not transport the paraduma water or the ashes from the paraduma. Should not transport them over the Jordan River in a ship. Nor should he stand on one side of any river and toss it over to the other side. It has to be grounded. It can't be transported by air, by sea. It has to be on the ground, firmly on the ground. Nor should he swim with them or ship them over water. Nor should he even ride on an animal while he's holding these items. Nor should he hitch a ride on his friend's bag. The point is, these items have to be firmly grounded to ensure that they are safely secured from Old Tumah. So you can carry these items if your feet are firmly planted on the ground. For instance, you can walk them over a bridge because you're planted on something solid, without concern. But throwing it across the air, throwing it across the river, sending it over with a ship, that's a problem. Irrelevant of whether it's Echad HaYarden ve'Echad Shar Na'aretz, whether it's the Yarden or other rivers. So according to Tanakama, it's a very broad gezerah. Keep it grounded. Keep it planted on the ground. Don't ship it. Don't fly it. Rabbi Chanani ben Akavi Omer, no. The concern is very limited. Lo asru ela biyardin ubesvina ukemasa shahaya. The gezerah only applies to a very specific circumstance, which perfectly mirrors, it duplicates that very story that happened, which created a tumah concern. And therefore, transporting it over another river, no problem. Only in the Yarden with a sfina. What exactly happened, which triggered this whole gezerah? The Amar Vida Marav, Masa Ba'adam Echad Shaya Mavir Mechatas Ve'ever Chatas. There was a story with this fellow who was transporting these items, B'Yardin or B'Sfina, over the Jordan River in a little ship, thinking that he was safe and secure, protected from tumah. And what happened? Turns out that there was a kazayis of a mace lodged under the floor of the ship. So unbeknownst to him, everything was tameh. On account of that story, they were masakin as follows. One should be careful not to duplicate the same scenario. So according to the Rabbanan, Tanakama, this story triggered a real concern. Don't send the Efer Chatas over water, any water. You never know what's going on beneath. Don't send it over an animal. Don't send it over. It has to be firmly grounded. You have to keep it firm and secure. Whereas Rabbi Chanani ben Akavya, he's very, very concerned only about that very case. That's it. But if it doesn't fit the same circumstance, it's not the same exact situation, it's not the Jordan, it's not the Sfina, it's okay. Perhaps the point here is that we're just trying to raise awareness, to increase awareness. Look, Chatas has to be kept safe. So once you remember, once you know this halacha, you're not meant to transport Efer Paraduma on a ship over the Yarden. Why not? What's wrong? What do you mean? Oh, there was that story with the Kazayas mace. that makes you mindful of the fact that this thing has to be kept safe and secure. And now you'll extend that awareness to any situation. So according to Chananya, there's no need to broaden the Gzera and say, look, every situation that resembles that story is us. No. As long as we enacted one Gzera in that specific circumstance, that's sufficient to raise awareness, to make you conscientious of the fact that these items have to be kept exceptionally safe and secure. So getting back to our sugya, we had a story of a fellow who was transporting wine of Kodesh. Turns out that he had a ritzua of a sandal that ended up inside the wine and made it tummy. Mishnah says that this incident triggered the Gzera in our Mishnah. We no longer allow you to transport kachim material together with a medras in your other hand, for concern that you might end up with the same situation of the thing being matame the kodesh. But why only kachim? Why isn't this a concern by other items that are tar, like truma, which you're also not allowed to be matame? The answer is we're following Rabbi Chananya. According to Rabbanan, you're right. We would broaden the concern and expand it and extend it to truma as well. But according to Rabbi Chananya, whenever there was a concern triggered by a specific incident that took place, we apply the gzera, the concern, to that very circumstance. And once you have that in place, that is sufficient to raise that awareness, to make you pay attention to these types of situations, in which case you'll be careful by truma as well. But we don't have to make a gzera and a tumah by truma. You'll on your own be careful. Perhaps that's the svara or Rabbi Chananya. So it's a very specific gzera pertaining only to Kodesh, just as the masa that took place. Ibailu, the Bnei Yeshiva had the following question. So we know there's a gzera with carrying a medras, a sandal tamei, a sandal that's tamei. What about sandal toher mao? Can he transport the kachim material in one hand while he's holding a sandal which is tar in his other hand? What would be the chashash? Says Rashi, maybe we're going to make a gzera one on account of the other. We don't want you carrying any sandals, for concern that next time it might be tummy and it might end up inside the barrel. That's one shayla. We know the concern is by a chavis psuchim, he's carrying an open barrel with kachim. Certainly that carries a real concern, because the medras might end up inside the barrel, which is exposed. Chavis stumamahu. What about if it's a sealed barrel? Very unlikely that the tumah will get inside. Shall we say that it's okay, or shall we say no? We don't differentiate between open and closed. Third question: Avar v'nosa mahu. Suppose he didn't listen to us, so he wasn't aware of this gzera. He happened to carry a medras together with kodesh. Shall we say it's only lechatchila? It's a recommendation. It's a strong recommendation, but the fact is, he knows there was no contact between tumah and tahara. Do we treat the kodesh as tar, or do we say no? Chacham established that when you carry tumah with tahara, we consider it tamei. We have a machlekes. Rabbi Ela Amar im avar v'nasa tamei. If you actually carry the tumah with the kodesh, we consider it to be tamei. We treat it as though it touched. Rabbi Zera Amar avar v'nasa tar. No, but the evidence okay. And Rabbi Chananel paskins go lakula. He says these are malas the rabbanon and kaimelon kolba the rabbanon avdinon kedivri hamekel. We are mekel. It would seem like perhaps in all three shilas we are mekel. We don't consider it to be tamei. So bottom line is, we have this additional mala of noises and midras. He should not be carrying kodesh. We are in line with Rabbi Chananya ben Akavya, who tells us that whenever there's a concern triggered that was set in motion by a specific story, by a specific michshal, a pitfall that took place, Chacham saw fit to enact a gzera, but it's only limited to the same type of circumstance which duplicates that specific story. And that's why in our Mishnah we speak about taking care not to carry kodesh with the medras because of that story that happened with kodesh. Okay, next on the list is kelim hanigmorim b'tahara. Mishnah says this fellow produces utensils, he has a factory, and he made sure that when he was finished the production process, it was tar. Right, at the point that it becomes a kli, he protected it from tumah, but it's not enough for kachim. We need tvila if you want to use it for a carb. Asks the Gemara, the gamrinu man, who was involved in the finishing touches of this kli? Who produced the kli? Who was there at that point? What kind of workers does he have in his factory? Was it a chaver, a fellow who keeps to high standards of tahara? Why would you have to be tevel the kli, which is certainly tar? Ela de gamrinu amaretz. Oh, an amaretz must have been involved. That explains why it needs tefillah. Well, nigmarim b'tahara karilahu. Why does the Mishnah refer to these kelim as nigmarim b'tahara? If an amaretz was involved, and we know that an amaretz is considered like a tamei. Omar Rabbi Bar Shila Marav Masna Mar Shmuel. Lo'ilam de gamrinu chaver. You know what happened? The chaver was the foreman. He was the owner. He was in charge. He was the only one engaged during the gemar kli. The concern is because we're concerned that perhaps an amaretz came into the factory before there was a gemar kli, and he was so enamored with the items there, and he started spitting, and it was all, his spit was all over the place, and there's a chashash that his spittle, right, his saliva, might have hit one of the kelim. And as Rashi says, we treat amaretz like a zav, and we know the zav's spit is an avatuma, it's mitame the kli. When did this happen? The nafal emas. When did the saliva hit the kli? Was it before the kli was even finished? Allah manu, at that point it's not even a kli, it's not susceptible to tumah, there's no concern. Oh, after it was completed, then it came into contact with the amaretz's spit. Well, Mizar Zaribu, this chaver who's in charge, this owner is certainly careful to keep Ami Haaretz away from his kelim. So why is there a concern with these kelim? You know what? He was there before. Haaretz came in and took a tour of the factory before the kelim were completed. So what's the concern? Maybe he got so excited and he was all over the place, his spit was flying, and it hit one of the kelim, which at this point is not yet affected because it's an unfinished utensil, which is not makabel tumah. But v'dilma be'idna degamri, maybe when the kli was completed, 10 minutes later, adayin lachahi, that spit was still there and still moist and still matame. So although at the point of contact with the kli, it didn't affect the kli, it was still an unfinished keli. But at this point, when that kli was finished, it still had the roik, the tzinoira, the spit was still present on the kli and is matame the kli. And that's why we need tevila. But it's a chumrah. After all, it's just a suffix, whether there was any spit on the kli, whether it lasted that long. So we require tefillah if you're going to use the kli for kach. Now it's clear in the Mishnah that tefillah all you need is tefillah. Head of shemesh loy. You don't need to wait till nightfall, which is typically the process applied when something is tamei min haTorah. But here it's only midrabanan, it's only a suffix. We're not sure really so we need a tefillah to be extra careful, extra conscientious, to raise awareness. But you don't need Herev Shemesh. You don't have to wait till the day is over. Now we have a problem. Mas Nisan Loikar Belezer. It appears that our Mishnah, which is happy with Tevila alone, is not following Rabbi Lazar, who seems to hold that both elements are required, Tevila and Herev Shemesh. How do we know? This is not. This is a Mishnah in Para. As we're going to see soon in the Gemara, they had trouble from the tzdukim, those groups of individuals who used to challenge, used to give the chachamim a hard time. They opposed the Torah Ba'al Peh, and they claimed that in order to be involved in Parah Aduma, in the shchita, and this, whatever you're going to do, it has to be done by a person or utensils that are completely tar. Tvila and Herev Shemesh. Only that's considered a tar. And we disagree. Rashi brings a drasha. The word tar is trying to tell you that even a partial tar, even tevila enough is sufficient for involvement in Parah Aduma. So the Chacham used to purposely mitame the person or the kelim that were involved in this process to show the tzdukim that they're wrong. to undo the tztukim, to oppose the tztukim, to disprove the tztukim. So they used to be matame, and then run to the mikveh, and right after tefillah get involved in paraduma before nightfall. And Rashi actually says in Amid Beis, because they were so, it gave the impression perhaps as they were being lax, because they were being matame, the items and the people involved in the par. So because of that, they established extra special super stringencies that we find throughout Shas, applied specifically to the paraduma situation, the chatas, the mechatas, the efer chatas. Why? In order to dispel any misconception, to remove any doubt, to correct any false impression that one may get from the fact that they're getting involved with tumah, that you can take the paraduma lightly. You can be mezalzel in it. That's why they established many chumras that we find throughout Shas. In any case, we have a Mishnah which describes the process as follows. You have a shvei a reed, a bamboo, which was cut, right, cut off the ground, to be used as a container for the ashes of the paradum. Rabbi Lezer Ami Yitbol Miyad. You tovel it right away. He means to say that you don't have to be matamed because it's already presumed to be tummy, as we're going to see soon. Relative to chatas, we treat it because we have to live up to the standards of the paraduma. So this plain reed is considered tummy, and we're going to be tovel it and use it like that, without heter of shemesh. And again, this is meant to disprove the tztukim. It's meant to be a heker against the tztukim. We use something after tefillah without heter of shemesh. Rabbi Shua Emer Yitame v'achkach yitbol. According to Rabbi Shua, you have to actually be matame. You take a sheret and you put it into contact with this shveferes, with this reed, to make it really tummy. Then you're toilet, and now, wow, look, tefillah with a heter of shemesh, we're going to disprove the tztuk. We had a kasha on this mission. The Chad Chaman, who exactly chopped the reed off the ground? Ilayim the Chad Chaver was a chaver who's presumed to be tar. Lamali tefillah. Rabbi Lezer says, go be toilet. Why would you need tefillah? It's presumed to be tar. The tefillah is worthless, and it's not going to create any heker to the tztukim because it's not even tummy. Oh, and Amaretz got involved. Since Amaretz is assumed to be tummy, so now the shiferes is assumed to be tummy, and tefillah is required. That explains Rabbi Lezer. Go be toilet. Asks the Gemara, so why would Rabbi Shua require us to go be matami the sheferes that's already tummy from the Amaretz? Hatami b'koy, it's already in a state of tumah. V'amar Rabbi Bar Shila, Amar of Masna, Amar Shmuel, lo'ilam the Chad Chaver. Chaver was the one who chopped it off the ground. Umishim tzinoyred Amaretz. Why are we assuming that it's tummy? Why does Rabbi Lezer require tefillah? And why is it going to be a heker against the tztukim? Because an Amaretz got involved. We're concerned about the saliva that squirted out of the Amaretz and landed on the sheferes. The nafal emas. When did it land on the sheferes? Is it before it was taken off the ground? Halav manu. It's not a utensil. It's mechubel lekarka. It's not going to be makabel tumah. It's not going to be affected by the tzinoyred Amaretz. Velabasa the chatcha. After he chopped it off the ground, Mr. Zerba, the chaver who's doing this, is very careful to keep it away from the Amaretz. Lo'ila mekamed lechatcha. Concerned that the tzinoyra hit the reed before it was chopped off the ground. Dilma be'idna the chatcha adayin lachi. We're concerned, like before we said, because perhaps the spit was still present on the sheferes after it was taken off the ground. So the chaver was involved. He kept it safe and secure, but we're concerned that perhaps the Amaretz was roaming around and he was spitting and it hit the thing. And now when he took it off the ground, it becomes susceptible. It becomes a kli and susceptible to tumah. And now it became tummy. Therefore, tefillah is required. and you're doing tefillah without head of shemesh, and that's a heker against the tzdukim. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Go take a sheretz and be matame the shveferes, and then go be toilet and use it before head of shemesh. Bishleim Rabbi Yehuda. We understand how according to Rabbi Yehuda we have the heker against the tzdukim. Hainu the ikar heker le tzdukim, because you were really matame it with the sheretz. It's a bona fide tumah. You did tefillah and you went to use it. And we sought to make heker against the tzdukim disnan. Metamana you akoyin as service at para. They should actually be metame the koyin who's involved in burning the para, and then send him to the mikveh and getting him involved at that point before head of shemesh. Why lahitzi miliban shel tzdukim, to disprove the tzdukim? Shayu aimrim b'murei v'shemesh haisanasis. They would insist that only mu'urei v'shemesh, only those people or utensils that experienced head of shemesh can be involved in the paradum. In this case, we will matami the sheferes. We will toivel it and use it right away. That's a heker against the tzdukim. El Rabbi Lezer, according to Rabbi Lezer, we don't add insult to injury. We don't add tumah to the sheferes. We just take it. We assume it. We assume that it's tummy. We toivel it, and we use it right then and there. Why? Because as we said, there's a concern about the tzinera damaretz. Now let's think for a second. Worst case scenario. There was some saliva sitting on the sheferes while it was taken off the ground. This chashash, it's only a suffix, right? So this chashash, that this may have occurred, what does it generate? A chiv tvila, or a chiv tvila and head of shemesh? Let's think for a second. We treat it like a vadai tumah, only like a suffix, and tvila is enough. Well, according to the Gemara before, we had a diak in the Mishnah. This type of concern only generates a chiv tvila, that's it. If that's the case, so where's the heker against its tzdukim? You don't need head of shemesh to begin with in this type of situation. El Rabbi Lezer, amars b'shloima ba'alma b'inin head of shemesh. This would make sense if typically this type of suffix tzinoyer damaretz generates a chiv of a tefillah and b head of shemesh. Well, in this case, that we're only doing tefillah. You're undoing the tzdukim because you're skipping the second phase. You're not doing head of shemesh. And this flies in the face of the tzdukim. Head of shemesh. But if you're coming, you're telling me based on our Mishnah, this type of situation doesn't require more than tefillah. Doesn't need head of shemesh to begin with. So in the case of the shveferes, which has that concern with the amaretz, and all you need is tefillah, and you did the tefillah, in which way are you disproving? Are you opposing the tzdukim? That's all you needed to begin with. When something needs tefillah and head of shemesh, and you suffice with tefillah, you are undoing the tzdukim. But when something only requires tefillah to begin with, such as the case of the suffix tzinoira from the amaretz, and you did tefillah, that's all you need to do. You're not disproving the tzdukim in any way. Amarat asur ketmei sheretz. Typically, this type of amaretz situation, a suffix amaretz situation, only requires tefillah, except by paraduma. It has higher standards, and we treat this kli as though it touched the sheretz. Right? In keeping with the higher standards of paraduma, we treat it as though it's really, really tummy, as though it's a rishon l'tumah, as though it touched the sheretz. In which case, it requires both phases, tefillah and head of shemesh, and by sufficing with just tefillah, you are undoing the tzdukim. Well, if it's only something that touched the sheretz, or treated as such, it doesn't have the ability to affect a person. A person can only get tumah from a source, an avela, a sheretz itself, but not from a kli that got its tumah from a sheretz, that's second-hand tumah. It doesn't affect the person. So why does the Brisa tell us that in this case, the fellow who was cutting the reed, who was matbil the reed, he needs to be toivel because he came into contact with that reed. If the reed is only a tmei sheretz, which means it's a rishon l'tumah, it won't affect the person. The beautiful Rashi here 5 lines from the top. Look to Tami Adam. It can't affect a person. Says Rashi, it's not a source. It's second-hand tumah. Ve'enim Tami Adam. Shaloi matzinu tumah le'adam v'kelim hanoigin b'tamei. Shekibel tumah machir. We never find that person or utensil can become tamei by way of touching something that has second-hand tumah. Very nice lashon Rashi. You can only get from the source. A person, a kli, can only get tumah from a source. Food, drink, they can be affected by anything, but a person, a kli, only from an avatumah. Except for one thing, he says chutz mitzmei meis. A person who came into contact with a mace or a kli that came out, that can affect a person, a kli as well. Shenamar v'nefesh nigas titmad arv. Okay, so back to the kasha. This sheiferis is treated like a tmei sheretz. It shouldn't affect a person, and we see that it does. Ve'ella asur k'tmei meis. Says the Gemara. Okay, let's go to the next option. We treat it like a tmei meis, which means that the sheferis is treated like an avatuma, like a touch mace, and now it can affect the person as well. And that's why the person needs tefillah. Yachi tiboy azos shlishi v'shivi. Okay, memanavshach. If this reed is considered as though it touched a mace, and it needs to go through the entire process. Get the sprinkling of the paraduma water on it on the 3rd day and the 7th day. Alomatanya, why does the Brisa say chayit chamat bila? All you do is chop it and be toivel, and you're done. Chayit chamat bila, ton tvila, right? The person who chops it and is matbel the reed needs to go to the mikveh himself, okay? But the item itself, bottom line is the item itself, all it needs is tefillah. Tefillah in, only tefillah. That's sufficient to remove its tumah. Hazas shlishi shvila, it doesn't need hazah, a paraduma. Ella rather, says the Gemara, let's modify it a bit. Asua k'tmei meis b'shvi shalai. Chacham consider this reed as though it's an avatuma, but it's already past all the hazois. He's already on his 7th day, so he's done the entire process. He's still tamei. He still needs to be tovel in the mikveh. We're talking about the reed, right? It needs to be nitbal in the mikveh, and it can be matame person. And that's why the person handling it has to go to the mikveh as well. But that's it. You don't need more than that. And bottom line is the fact is that we are happy with just tefillah. We don't do head of shemesh, which is typically the case when something is an avatoma, and that disproves the tztukim. So let's just stop for a second. Bottom line is we answered al kasha. And now Mishnah we seem to learn that the suffix ha'ma'aretz involvement only generates a chiv tefillah, not head of shemesh. We had a kasha from the Mishnah in Para. We're trying to disprove the tztukim. We have a shveferis that was perhaps got affected by the Amaretz, and we do tefillah. But how does that disprove the tztukim if all you needed was tefillah to begin with? The answer is that when it comes to paraduma, we have higher standards, and we're so concerned. We treat anything like it's really, really tummy in the highest degree. For instance, in the case of this sheiferis, we treat it like it's an avatuma, like it's meimes on the 7th day, in which case it needs tefillah and herav shemesh. And the fact is that we suffice with tefillah itself, and that undoes its tztukim. Continues the Gemara. He took a reed, and he decided, you know what? He's like a tmei meis on day 7. You're being very creative. You're creating some sort of you're concocting some sort of new tumah. Vatanya, we have a brisa which says that even though they did many malis, many chumras by the paraduma, we never find that they concocted a new creation. They invented a new type of tumah. Let's go over to Rashi on the left. We find many chumras. Oh, why? Here's the Rashi. This was meant to counteract the appearance as though we're taking it lightly. Because they used to actually be matama the kohen. So you said to make him a tefillah. So because of that, they enacted many stringencies. But still, they didn't invent a new concept. So how does this fit with what we're saying here? If it's as you say, she'asur kelim hanigmar b'tahara, that any kli which is presumed to be tar is treated like the ultimate tamei. Kitmei meis hare ein lecha chidush gadol mizeh. You're treating him like a tmei meis. How can you take something which is tar and say, oh, you're a tmei meis? So to say that perhaps the Amoritz got involved and made it tamei, made it a rishon l'tumah, fine. But to consider this thing like a tmei meis, like an avatum, how'd you get to that point? That's a real invention. Answers the Gemara, no. It still fits. It fits the mold. They never invented a new type of tumah. But they applied a pre-existing tumah. They applied a previously known concept of tumah to this item. That they can do. They didn't invent, but they applied. They would never say, even when it comes to paraduma, they would never say the following, that a kordam, an axe, which is a tool, a work tool, should become tami moishav, which would mean that if a zav sits on it, it becomes tami. That doesn't work. The sani of ayoyishav ala kli. If a zav sits down on a kli, it becomes an avatuma. But not every kli. If it's meant for sitting, it's a seat, it's a couch, it's a bed, but not a container, not a tool, which is not meant for sitting. Perhaps if he flips over a large container which contains a sa'ah, he flips it upside down and sits on it. Or a tarkav, which is lashon of trei v'kav, 2 and 1, 3 kav, a smaller container, flips it over and sits down on it. Do you think it becomes a medras hazav? No. Rashi says the diuk is from yeshev. It should have said that the dove sat on it. Asher yashav, past tense. Asher yeshev sounds like it's something intended for this purpose. It's a seat. It's meant to serve in this capacity. And only that gets affected by the zav. Misha meyuchad yeshiva, something meant for sitting. Yotzeh as opposed to a container or a tool. They tell him, get off of us. We're busy. We got to get to work. Get up. We have to do our work. We're not meant for sitting. So that's the concept by Azav. And that we never do by paraduma either. We don't say, well, a tool has a din of a moishav, of a medras. A container. No. That's unfounded. It's ungrounded. We don't create new things. But a reed, a kli, to say, well, you're like a tmei meis, that's okay. Although he's not a tmei meis, but when it comes to paraduma, we add all these milas and all these concerns. We can consider any remote possibility of tumah having occurred, and we take almost the most stringent form of tumah, we apply it to this sheferis. Because this is a kli that could be makabel tumah. He's not like the container with the zav. That doesn't connect, doesn't relate to the zav. This sheferis, this reed is a kli that's makabel tumah. And this allows it to apply the most stringent form of tumah to him, in honor of the paraduma. Okay, let's continue down the list. Hakli mitzaref masha b'seichel l'kodesh avlei l'truma. Mishnah tells us another chumrah by kachim is as follows: if you have a kli that contains many items, kodesh related items, and one becomes tamei, we treat them all as though they're one unit. They're all tamei. If you touched one, that affects them all. The kli combines them all, makes them into one singular unit. Perhaps the point is that they're all meant for carbon, right? They're all going up to the mizbech, so they're all considered one unit. There's a joint purpose. They're functioning in the same capacity. They're treated as one. That applies only to Kodesh. Munan Amili. How do we know this? Omer of Chanan. It's a pasuk. It's according to Rav Chanan. This concept is Minat Torah. The Amakro, by the Nisim, it says Kav Achas Asar Azahav Maleo Ketoiris. The word Achas teaches you Hakasav Asar Lekol Mashabakaf Achas. Anything inside this klisharis, this spoon is considered as one. Masar of Kahana. How could you say it's Daraisa? It's clear from the following Mishnah that it's only Midrabanan. The Mishnah begins with Rabbi Shimon ben Meseir, who tells us that Efer Chatas, paraduma ashes, are considered one entity. Right? If they're sitting on one kli, if you touch only a little bit of the ashes, everything becomes tummy. And we have Hoisiv Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva adds to that Hasoilis, flour, meant for the carbon, vakteres, the incense, valavoina, vagecholim. Right, the crushed teres, the lavoina, that's the incense that's brought together with the mincha, vagecholim, coals. So all these carbon-related items are considered as one. Shem naga tvul yom b'mektsase paslas kulit. They're sitting in a kli, and a tvul yom, a fellow who had tvilon, is a waiting head of shemesh, so it's a lighter form of tumah. Even he can affect the entire content as one. It's clear this is a din d'Rabbanan, not d'Oraisa. How do I know? Mimai. Tani Reisha. Look at the beginning of the Mishnah. Heid Rabbi Shimon ben Meseira. So he testified, al efer chatos, the ashes of the para duma, which is certainly not a carbon. It's not mizbeach related. So you certainly can't apply the drasha of kaf achas to that substance. Over there, it's certainly only the Rabbanan. Shanaga atame b'miktsasa shetimes kul. If Tommy touched part of it, everything becomes affected. Uktani hoisif Rabbi Kiva. On that, Rabbi Kiva adds the following items as well. Soilas, Kteres, which are mizbeach related items. It's clear from the course of their discussion. It's the Rabbanan. So tziruf kli is the Rabbanan, not the Reis. Amar Reish Lakish mishum bar kapara leinitzrucha el l'shiyari mincha. The truth is that the concept of tziruf kli, of treating everything inside the kli as one, is minat Torah, based on the pasuk of kaf achas asorazov. That's only when it needs the kli. That's only when it's on its way to the mizbeach. It's part of the hakrava process to put something in a kli sharis and bring it to the mizbeach, so the kli sharis combines it all as one. When Rabbi Kiva tells us that the soilus is treated all as one, because everything in the kli is considered united and one, Shiyari mincha is what he's speaking about. The leftovers, after the kmitza, after the aktar, the leftovers, that goes to the kohen. That's not mizbeach related. Tziruf kli b'nat Torah only applies to something on the way up to the mizbeach, but not shiyari mincha. D'oraisa, tzorech al kli akli mitzarfei b'nat Torah. Carbon material on its way up to the mizbeach, which needs a kli sharis, the kli is now going to combine it. It's one entity. It's one carbon. Shein tzorech al kli, but something that doesn't really need a kli, such as the leftovers of the mincha. There's no requirement for them to be in a kli sharis. In a kli mitzarfei, the kli can't really affect it, can't combine it. V'asur Rabbanan v'gazru de'afagav de'ena tzorech al kli mitzarfei. The Chacham came along and added another chumrah, that even in this case, the kli mitzarf combines it and makes it into one. So both are true. We have the pasuk that's referring to carbon material, anticipating akrava, sitting inside a kli sharis. But once it's done, it's just shiori mincha. It doesn't need a kli. Now we have the Rabbanan, who extended this concept to that situation as well. Teinach soilus, that explains soilus on Rabbi Kiva's list. That's the leftover of the mincha. What about the other items, which are certainly mizbeach related materials? They're only going up, they're not coming down. That's the Iraisa. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Baravua. I'll find you a case where it's only midrabban. Kigoin, shet savron al gabe kartavla. He piled them onto this leather mat, a flat mat, which has no interior, it has no toich. The Iraisa, because minat Torah only yesh le toich. Mitzaref, a kli which has an interior, it makes it all join together because it relates to the kli. The kli surrounds all the substances, all the material that makes it into one. Ainly toich in a mitzaref, it doesn't have an interior such as a flat mat, it doesn't combine it. But Rabbanan came and extended it further. The afagav the ainly toich mitzaref, even if there's no toich, there's no cavity, there's no interior, it's sitting on one utensil. It all joins together as one. So according to Rav Chanan, there's an element of minat Torah. That's when it's in a kli, it needs the kli, and the kli has a toich. But otherwise, it's only midrabban. Upliga de Rav Chanan. This that we say that the concept of tziruf kli is minat Torah based on a pasuk is in disagreement of Rav Chanan. Sorry, upliga de Rav Chanan adar Rav Chanan, who maintains that it's minat Torah, is in disagreement with Bar Abba, who claims that it's only midrabbanan. Don't Bar Abba Rav Yechanan. Meiduse shel Rabbi Kiva. Nishnis Mishnah Zu, our Mishnah. which presents us with this concept of tziruf kli, it's based on Rabbi Akiva's testimony. It's all midrabanan. There is no concept of tziruf kli min haTorah. Okay, let's do a brief chazara. We actually had 3 malos that we discussed today. Noises HaMidras can't be Noises HaKodesh. And we learned that this was based on a story of a fellow who carried Kodesh together with Tameh and became Tameh, who followed Rabbi Hanani ben Akavya, who suffices with that specific circumstance. And that will sort of arouse us, make us pay attention, to keep things tar, as we find by the Paraduma water. There was a story with a Yarden and a Sfina, turned out to be Tameh. Rabbi Hanani says, you know what? You can't duplicate that story. But that's it. It's limited to that specific circumstance. What happens b'diavad if he carries Tumah, carries a Medras together with the Kodesh? We have a Machlekes, whether it's considered Tameh or Tar, and the Psak Halacha is that it's Tar. The next thing we discussed was Kelim HaNegmorim B'Tahara. Utensils that were finished, that were completely processed B'Tahara, meaning the completion was B'Tahara, to ensure that it's Tar. It still needs Tefillah L'Kodesh. We're concerned perhaps that Namaretz was roaming around and his spit hit the thing and it was there while it was finished, in which case it becomes Tameh. The Gemara was medayik from the Mishnah. All you need in this case is Tefillah, because after all it's just a Safek. We included with Kli Mitzaraf Masha B'Soichi. Anything inside a Kli is considered joined and combined as one. According to one sheet, that's Min HaTorah, provided that it needs a Kli, provided that the Kli has a Toich, otherwise it's Rabbanan. According to Rabbi Yechanan, the entire concept is merely midrabanan. Much hatzlacha to you, and all the best.